Hello everyone. Today's topic is breaking free from the blame game, Buddhist wisdom on personal responsibility. I have received a question today. I have a subordinate at work who always blames others for everything. Even though it's clear that he is at fault, he still blames others. When I explain to him, he doesn't understand and instead becomes defensive, which is really exhausting. How should I deal with this kind of person? Managing people is tough, isn't it? There are people who cannot admit their own mistakes, like him. When there are such people among your subordinates or in your family, it can make life very difficult. So the question is, how can we deal with such people? First, it is important to understand the psychology of people who blame others for everything. People have their own reasons or mindsets that make them unable to admit their mistakes, even though it should be such a natural thing to do. Once you understand that, you will also understand how to deal with them and how to approach them. So then, how can we understand the mindset of someone who always blames others for everything? To understand it, it is important to learn about the Buddhist law of cause and effect. By understanding this law, we come to realize that people who always blame others for everything have a certain mindset. We also come to understand that such tendencies exist within our own minds as well. The law of cause and effect, which is the essence and foundation of Buddhism, is a highly important concept. So today, I would like to answer the previously mentioned question through the lens of the law of cause and effect. I will talk about these 3 points. First, the thief who blames the rope. Second, the woman with 7 faces. Third, when you live by the law of cause and effect, life changes. In a Buddhist sutra, it says, everything in this world is brought about through cause and condition. It is taught that when causes and conditions come together, various results manifest. The things that have happened to you are also results. Various things happen in our lives on a daily basis. As each year progresses, happy things, sad things, difficult things, or scary things might happen to you. Both the good and the bad things that happen in our lives are results. Buddhism teaches that the causes of the things that happen to you, the events that occur in your life, are all within yourself. These are called karmic causes. Karma means one's own actions. Buddhism teaches of 3 kinds of actions: verbal, physical, and mental. In Buddhism, it is taught that our own actions have consequences that directly affect our lives. We call this concept own causes produce own effects. In Buddhism, it is consistently taught that the seeds we sow will manifest as results for us. However, it is important to note that our actions won't produce results on their own. It is only when a cause combines with conditions that a result occurs. To put it in simple terms, conditions refers to your environment or things around you that have an influence on you. Your family environment, workplace environment, the people surrounding you, as well as the era and country you live in, are all considered the environment. It is taught that it is when causes and conditions come together that various things happen to you. Let's say you take a walk in the park and see that many tulips have been blooming. When tulip bulbs in the soil come into contact with spring weather, the tulips bloom. The spring weather is a condition, you see. Tulips will never bloom without tulip seeds, even when the spring comes along. So, we can say that tulip seeds are the direct cause for their blooming, while environmental factors like the spring weather are indirect causes. Just having the seeds is not enough for tulips to bloom. In addition to that, various conditions, including the spring weather, soil, sunlight, and nutrients, need to come together for the flowers to bloom. So, just like with the tulips, our actions alone are not enough for the flowers of our fate to bloom. When our actions come together with the right conditions, the results will manifest themselves. For example, let's say someone shoplifted and got arrested for it. Why did he get arrested? Someone saw him shoplifting. There was someone who was on the lookout for shoplifters, and they thought, this person seems likely to shoplift, and observed him closely. The cause, the act of shoplifting, and the condition, the presence of the observer, came together and led to the consequence. No matter how often he shoplifted, if there were no one on the lookout for thieves, he might not have got caught. So, even if the act itself is performed without the right conditions, the doer won't have to suffer any consequence. This is how things happen sometimes. Alternatively, even if there were guards on the lookout for shoplifting inside the store, no matter how many of them are there, if a person doesn't engage in shoplifting, they won't get arrested. So, in this case, it was due to the combination of the man's act of shoplifting and the presence of the observer that the result of him getting arrested occurred. When we blame others, we are actually blaming conditions, not causes. Certainly, whenever bad things happen to us, there are factors that serve as conditions for those outcomes. These are triggers or catalysts that enable the result to happen. We tend to blame those conditions. There is an old proverb that describes this kind of mindset. A thief who blames the rope. One day, a thief gets arrested and tied up with a rope. He is angry. What is he angry about? He is angry at the rope. Ouch, the rope! It hurts, damn rope! It's because of this rope that I'm suffering. A thief who blames and hates the rope in this way is a fool. Think about it. Why is it him who is tied up with a rope and not someone else? It's because he committed a theft. He is barking up the wrong tree by resenting the rope that is causing him suffering while overlooking the fact that it is a consequence of his own act of theft. That is the essence of the proverb, a thief who blames the rope. We tend to have a narrow perspective and only focus on the rope that is currently causing us suffering without considering the bigger picture. The proverb, a thief who blames the rope, implies that the thief lacks the wisdom to understand why he is suffering due to the rope. Anyone who hears about this would know the thief was being an idiot. However, while it's easy for us to understand what's wrong with other people's actions, when it comes to ourselves, we often fail to recognize our own behavior. Instead, we tend to blame people and things around us, saying things like, if only that person weren't there, or if only this situation didn't happen. Have any of you had the experience of having your homes broken into? Homes that are targeted by burglars actually have certain characteristics. So, homes that have been targeted by burglars have the possibility of being targeted again. Professional burglars reportedly look for two specific conditions. The first condition is having blind spots or areas where they cannot be seen by people, allowing them to enter the house without being noticed. The second condition is ensuring that if someone is inside the house, they have a quick escape route that they can flee from promptly. They say that houses that meet these two conditions are susceptible to being targeted by burglars. Let's say a burglar breaks into this house. If he enters through this window, this side is already against the wall of a building, so no one can see him from here. And if someone is inside, he can quickly escape through this route and reach a crowded area. So that's how burglars break into houses like this. Now, let's say someone was inside when the burglar entered the house. He hurriedly left the house. Since he had already figured out an escape route, he tried to run away via this alleyway. This alley is narrow and only one person can pass through at a time. As he was passing through there, he encountered a plainclothes police officer who was smoking a cigarette. This police officer just so happened to be having a smoke break in this alleyway. So, the thief collided with the police officer here and, as a result, he was arrested. He had been a professional burglar for 10 years, meaning he had been committing burglaries for a decade without ever getting caught. He didn't get caught for all that time because he always ensured he wouldn't be seen and that he had a safe escape route. He attempted to escape as usual, but he never expected to come across a police officer smoking in such a place. Because of this, he ended up being caught and arrested. In this case, the cause of the burglar's arrest is indeed his own action of breaking into the house. The police officer who was smoking there was a condition. In this way, a cause and a condition came together. Until then, the burglar didn't have the condition to get caught, so even though he was committing theft, he still didn't get caught. But this time, his act of theft and the presence of a police officer standing along the escape route came together as the cause and the condition. And that's how the result occurred. As a professional burglar, he might have wondered why there was a police officer standing in such a place, and thought if only there weren't a police officer there, he wouldn't have been caught. For 10 years, he had managed not to get caught, but this time was different. Now he begins to think, how was I to know a police officer would be there? That's never happened to me before. I can't believe this. Why'd he have to stand around there of all places? He passes the blame for his arrest to the police officer. If he had been a first-time burglar and broke into a house out of desperation but immediately got caught, he would have thought, I shouldn't have done that. In this case, he would be able to reflect on his own actions. But he had been doing this for 10 years without any consequences, so he can't see his own act of burglary as the cause for his arrest. Instead, he feels that it happened because that person was standing there. This is the mindset that resides within all of us. No matter how many police officers were standing there would have been no outcome of getting caught as long as he didn't commit a burglary. Even if you collide with a police officer while playing a game of tag, for instance, they might say something like, "Be careful," but they wouldn't arrest you for that. The only reason for his arrest is that he engaged in the act of burglary, nothing else. However, in times like these, we can't help but think, if only he weren't there. In Buddhism, it is taught that there are different ways in which causes and conditions come together, sometimes resulting in immediate consequences, while at other times producing results after a certain period of time. These are called quick turn karma, later turn karma, and much later turn karma. If you get caught shoplifting and are arrested on the spot, that is quick turn karma. As soon as you act, a cause and a condition come together and a result appears immediately. Later turn karma means that you do something, but it takes time for a result to manifest. Let's say you shoplifted and thought you might get caught, but you managed to leave the store without being caught. You felt relieved that you got away with it. But about a month later, you go to the store and you hear an employee say, "Hey, you shoplifted from here a month ago, didn't you?" This leads to you getting arrested. It turns out that your image was captured on the security cameras, so they remembered your face in order to apprehend you the next time you came to the store. So, this kind of result comes when you least expect it. You were nervous when you shoplifted, thinking you might get caught, but after that, a whole month passed and you started feeling like things had blown over. Feeling relieved, you even started to forget about the guilt of your crime. However, it was right after that when the condition combined with the cause and you were arrested. So this is called later turn karma. With much later turn karma, even if you have completely forgotten about it, you will receive retribution when the time is right. In the case of quick turn karma, it's easier for you to feel the need to repent, thinking that it was your own actions that caused the outcome. You might accept that all of this is due to own cause producing own effects, and that you have reaped what you sowed. But if you receive retribution when you have already forgotten what you did, you start passing the blame. If only he weren't there, this wouldn't have happened, you grumble to yourself. If it's been a particularly long time since you forgot about it, you can't help but wonder how this could be your own fault. Here's an interesting example of a real-life crime. Kazuko Fukuda was a criminal who killed a hostess in Matsuyama, Japan, and was on the run for a long time. All the while, she kept undergoing plastic surgery. She hoped to keep evading arrest for the 15 years it would take for the statute of limitations on her crime to expire. However, approximately 20 days before it was due to expire, Fukuda was arrested. She had become known as the woman with 7 different faces due to all the plastic surgeries she had undergone to change her appearance. This had made it quite difficult for the police to apprehend her. Fukuda thought that with all the changes she had made to her face, she wouldn't be caught. Why did she end up being caught just 20 days before the statute of limitations expired? Before the day of her arrest, she had felt so sure that she would somehow manage to keep evading police until those 15 years were up. She must have thought only 20 more days left. But at an Oden shop that she had begun to frequent, the shop owner thought, although her face is different, her voice sounds very similar. Maybe she could be Kazuko Fukuda. The TV was on in the shop, and they were airing a recording of her voice on a talk show. The owner, upon hearing it, thought, wait, doesn't this sound just like that woman who often comes here? The owner therefore tampered with the karaoke microphone to make it possible to collect her fingerprints the next time she visited. She must have been surprised to realize that the shop owner would go to such lengths. She might have thought, I shouldn't have kept going to that Oden shop. It's all that owner's fault. If only that owner weren't there, the statute of limitations would have expired and I would have been free. However, if she did think that, she would be just a thief who blames the rope. The fact that she was arrested is a result that stemmed from the seed she herself planted 15 years ago when she killed someone. She was sentenced to life imprisonment and passed away while in prison. In cases like this, we tend to want to pass the blame onto others, which means passing the blame onto conditions. That is, unfortunately, just human nature. There is a Jewish proverb that goes like this. When a person falls, they first blame the stone. If there is no stone, they blame the slope. And if there is no slope, they blame their shoes. This is a universal phenomenon throughout history. This Jewish proverb from over 2,000 years ago continues to resonate even today. We humans have a tendency to blame others for everything without much change over time or across cultures. Of course, tripping over something is actually due to one's own carelessness. However, this Jewish proverb highlights our tendency to quickly blame things other than ourselves, such as the stone, the slope, or our shoes. When we have a favorable outcome, we are so quick to accept that it is because of our own efforts. When we have a negative outcome, we tend to fall into a mindset of blaming and cursing the person involved, saying things like, if only they weren't there, or if only they hadn't said such things. This leads to further suffering and a downward spiral. Many people find themselves in this situation. Whether it's between spouses or in the workplace, there are many people who, by blaming others, inadvertently make their situation worse. It's astonishing how common it is for people to end up tightening the noose around their own necks in this way. In such times, if you shift your focus to what kind of seeds you have sown that could have led to these results, you will find that your mind, which was burdened with so much resentment and suffering, suddenly becomes lighter. What we should be questioning is, why is this happening to me specifically? Now, there is some truth to our disgruntled thought that this happened because some bad person or thing was there. However, we should focus on why we in particular had to be involved with that bad person and go through such an experience. For example, imagine someone's shoulder accidentally bumps into yours on a train platform, and they angrily shout at you to watch where you're going. This is a frustrating experience. Normally, if we accidentally bump into each other while walking, we can just say, oops, sorry, and move on. But when someone takes such an arrogant attitude and speaks to us like that, it can make us irritated and frustrated. If you keep thinking things like, they're the one who crashed into me, watch where you're going, maybe they should take their own advice. I just can't believe how rude some people are. You will continue to feel stressed. On the flip side, if you start blaming yourself and you think, oh no, I'm such a klutz, I can't believe I've done that, as if it's your own fault, that is also not a good way to approach the situation. Sometimes people are just unreasonable. It's silly for someone to aggressively shout, "Watch where you're going," if they've bumped into you. That was simply a bad condition. However, the cause that led to the outcome of bumping into the person and getting yelled at was within you. That means there is something you can do to avoid this happening again. Considering that there are many unpredictable people in the world, you might think about adjusting your commute time to avoid crowded platforms, or even reconsider your choice to commute by train in the first place. It helps to reflect on how you can change your actions to avoid such negative outcomes and bad conditions. Alternatively, even if someone never ends up bumping into a person on a train, they might think about how to prevent this kind of thing from happening anyway, because they want to avoid causing harm and inconvenience to others. Being considerate of others in this way can make a positive change to society. That's a good route to take too. In any case, it is important to consider what kind of seeds one needs to sow in order to avoid negative results. In this world, there are all sorts of people who may end up being bad conditions for you. Having any kind of connection with such people in business often leads to failure, and marrying such a person will also result in failure, so it's better not to marry that person or to avoid engaging in business with them in the first place. If you don't reflect on your own actions, the same things will happen to you again and again. If you continue to go through life doing nothing but cursing others when bad things happen, you'll fail to do anything to protect yourself for when the next bad person comes along. Only by examining your own actions can you change your results. It is very important to resolve to keep doing this. When you act with full awareness that you will only ever reap what you have sown, life undergoes a drastic change. Your mind changes, and indeed, your life starts to change as well. Today's topic was breaking free from the blame game, Buddhist wisdom on personal responsibility. The tendency to blame others for one's misfortune is not something that only exists in others, but rather is something within ourselves too. We all share this habit. A person who reflects on and deals with such a mentality within themselves will become skilled at interacting with such people and even offering them appropriate advice. Today, I have talked about the Buddhist teachings on the law of cause and effect. The law of cause and effect is the foundation and backbone of Buddhism. So, if you wish to learn more about Buddhism, it is important for you to thoroughly understand this law. That's why I talk about it on my YouTube channel. Since it is the foundation of the teachings, it is not possible to cover everything at once. Today, I talked about this particular aspect of the law of cause and effect, but I intend to make more videos on this in the future, so I hope you will continue to watch. Thank you very much for watching today.